to go.
Welcome to SnappTalk with Shaundra, the podcast. Ready to live creatively and freely?
Let's go.
Be inspired by someone who left corporate culture to live her entrepreneurial dream. Here's your host, Shaundra Webb.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to SnappTalk with Shaundra, Season 2, Episode 3. Thank all of you Facebook friends for joining in. I was going to say followers, but I don't like the word followers. I just like to say you're my friends. But come on in. Make sure you share, like, and comment. We have a very special guest in the studio today, and we have some good stuff we're going to be talking about. This is a show where we have great topics that empower us, that motivate us, and help us just to be better versions of ourselves. So I want to introduce you guys to a gentleman that I met. Actually, you know what? No, I didn't meet him first. I followed him. Yes, I did, on Facebook. And just admired him from afar, and he was just so kind. I think I inboxed him, and he is the podcast show host of No Permission Needed for Entrepreneurs. Great show. You can find him on all platforms, and he is the founder of Pod Houston. For all of you that are thinking about getting into podcasts, it's just a great group that just gives us great resources, and you're always hosting great events for those coming into the fold or those that have already been in. I want to welcome my friend Ozial. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yes.
Congratulations on everything.
Thank
your
you.
accomplishment,
Thank you
launching
for
your
being here.
podcast.
So I told
It's an honor.
Ozial, I said, he's like my mentor from afar. He doesn't know it, but I'm serious. But I watch you. I really do. And I admire just the work that you're putting in just in this whole arena. And people are still tapping into it. It's still very new, right?
Absolutely.
So podcasting is super new. And
Super new.
yeah, and so you've kind of, I think, have led the way for a lot of people, and people are learning from you as well. So you guys, today we're going to talk about, when you're winning, but you're still not satisfied. Ozial, I know sometimes, because we operate in a world of just, social media,
Yes.
right? That's like kind of like our main platform for people to hear us, through technology. And people have their, idea and perception of what you're looking like, because we post our best life, right, on social media.
Right.
And so just, in how you started, I'm pretty sure you started just from a humble place. Like, talk about that, like when you got into podcasting, like what that was like.
Yeah. So remember Yo MTV Raps?
Yes.
I always wanted to be that dude interviewing the rappers. So I always dreamed of being in broadcast, specifically interviewing MTV when MTV was hot.
Yeah.
And I always loved conversations. And I was that dude who would strike the conversation with random people on the street.
Yeah.
And I always I was very intrigued by the art of conversation. So after I left that, I was doing some interviewing. I started my own little company early on. It was called Indie Loop. It was called Your Social Loop for all things independent, where I actually interviewed a bunch of small business owners. And that's how I kind of started getting in the grind and getting used to interviewing people.
Yeah.
And from there, I was introduced to podcasting, fast forward to 2014.
Gotcha.
Where I kind of got introduced to podcasting. I was like, what? You can have your own radio show. So I could be that Yo MTV Rap DJ
right.
and do it. So podcast gave me the opportunity to start my own radio station, so to speak. And then, as they say, the rest is history.
Yeah, and create your own lane.
Right.
That's the thing about podcasting. What I love is that you can make it whatever you want. There's no right or wrong way, to doing it. So when you started your show, No Permission Needed, for entrepreneurs, like what's your affinity like towards entrepreneurs? Why entrepreneurs?
More specifically, creative entrepreneurs. Because before that, actually, during my 20s, I was involved in music. So I was really inspired by my father. He was the typical struggling artist, had a bunch of side hustles, was working 9 to 5. But had a passion for art.
Yeah.
And he was a musician, played all instruments, but he struggled to book shows, to market himself. And I started learning a lot about as a musician, how can I market and brand myself? So I saw a lot of my friends in the circle that were musicians that were struggling, that didn't know about marketing and branding and creating their own lane.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create No Permission Needed as a platform to help creatives learn about just basic business principles, how they can take it from struggling artists to thriving artists and teach them kind of what they can do to kind of amplify their passion through business and entrepreneurship. That was kind of my inspiration behind No Permission Needed.
Right. So it was more about helping than you creating, say, a platform to be that DJ.
Right.
You know, on, and I think in those of you that are in, you know, creative spaces, let me know, you know, what you do, you know, what type of business you're in, or if you're a podcaster tuning in, let us know, you know, what your podcast in. So, you know, in people watching and saying, you know, oh, you just kind of made it, you know, here, in whatever, whether it's podcasting, whether it's owning your own business, whether it's, you know, losing weight or whatever the case, people will look at you and come up with their own notion of how you got there, not knowing the struggle. So let's kind of talk about, you know, when you go through the struggle, you know, what does that look like when when you're going through the struggle? Talk about a time maybe where, you know, the downtime, like in podcasting, because you have to kind of build it to a place.
Right.
Let's talk about building. What advice would you give to someone that's taking something from nothing and building it? Like, what type of person do you need to be? What do you need to do in order to get to that place or get over the hump?
Right.
What did you do?
I think it's understanding your purpose and who you're going to serve. I think a lot of people who start platforms, they don't have clarity. I think clarity is a big issue in entrepreneurship. Anybody who's building an online brand is that they don't know who they're trying to cater to, right? And then you always get the people who say, well, I want to cater to everybody.
Yeah.
Well, you can't do that. You know, there's different genres, different people. So that's why I decided, yes, entrepreneurs, but creative entrepreneurs. People that are musicians, the poets, the dancers, people that are creative minded and that I want to learn about entrepreneurship. So I think anybody who's out there who wants to start a platform, you got to start with clarity and figuring out who do I want to serve, and then kind of start building a brand that's going to serve them. So that creates your content, that creates the platform, and then you can decide whether or not you want to use voice at podcast or video or both, which are both powerful platforms. Yes. But I think you need to, you know, find out where you want to go in your audience and then tailor everything around that.
Yeah, I love what you said about that, because sometimes we can just hop on or come up with great ideas, especially if you're creative.
Right.
Like, I'll wake up in the middle of the night, Ozial, I'm like, I want to do that.
This and that.
And I'm just writing, writing stuff down, but with no focus, no real intent, just because I want to do it. And so that's great advice, you guys, to just, if you want to do something, like, it has to be intentional and it has to serve a purpose and it has to make sense.
That's right.
So have you ever done anything that didn't make sense?
Yes, I did a lot of little things. I was like, what did I do that? I can't think of anything specifically because there were so many.
Hello, join the club.
Right. But one thing that I did was, even with a podcast, I was trying to do like a YouTube channel, and I was trying to blog and do it all, and then I decided, you know what, what's the one lane that I want to own? And it was podcasting. And anybody who's watching and listening, you have to make sure that in the beginning, once you have clarity in what you want to do, focus on one platform and dominate that space. And then you start kind of multicasting and bringing in video and blogging, because I think that's where you need to focus. So just focus on that lane. Like Jay-Z just focused on rap for a while.
Yes.
And then he built a Rockefeller, and then he got into products, and now he's just Puff Daddy. If you look at people in the urban culture, they did the same thing. So I try to tell people, same thing when you're building an online brand, just dominate one lane, become known for that, and then you expand your platform.
Yes, I love that you pointed that out about P. Diddy and Jay-Z and just
J-Lo was a dancer before she, so.
And staying in that lane. So what about, because sometimes you can feel like I'm not competing, but if I don't move fast enough, someone else will get that spot.
Right.
So how do you balance?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? How do you balance that moment of not doing something just to get ahead, but also being in that place to where I'm like, this is really kind of where I thrive, so let me stay here.
Yeah. I think the latter is where to go, because I think a lot of the times there's pressure for content creators to say, well, I need to be everywhere. But that method doesn't necessarily work, because realistically, a lot of us are solopreneurs. We may have a team, but we can't be everywhere to everyone, right? So I believe in the philosophy of sticking to one lane, focusing on that. So if you're comfortable speaking, podcast. If you're cool with the camera and you enjoy this and you want to flex all day, then YouTube and video. Or if you can be like Shaundra and do both. I mean, you can do both. You know what I mean? But But, I always tell people, it's like, oh, I really don't like to write. I'm like, well, then why are you doing a blog? So, I feel comfortable behind the mic. Well, then start a podcast. So I think it's knowing your strengths. I think you got to be honest with yourself. A lot of people are not real with themselves as far as where is my strength at. So it's important to do that. But yeah, there's always going to be pressure of like, oh, speed, and I need to jump on the podcast because everybody's doing it. But if podcasting is not your thing, then it's not your thing. Focus on other things that are your strength. Yeah.
I love it. So you're doing a whole lot of things. You have your own business, and mobile bartending.
Right.
Talk about that. Some people don't know.
Nobody knows that. Yeah, not too many people know that.
Do you want to share?
Some few, for sure.
Business, of course.
Yeah. So, okay, here's a quick story. So about 5 years ago, I was over $16,000 in debt, in credit card debt. And I was working a day job, a cubicle job, which I hated. And as a creative, I was doing all these other projects.
You as creative as you were? Okay.
Okay. I had a day job for a minute. And so I was like, how can what other skill sets do I have to be able to get out of debt? So I started private event bartending. So weddings, corporate companies, car dealerships, all kinds of house parties. And I started, and within a year and a half, I got out of debt. All cash, $16,000.
Oh, you were killing it then.
So I was making pretty good money.
Yeah.
And I decided to help other people that were looking for side hustles. Now side hustle is a thing. So for people who are always coming with excuses like, I can't make any money, there's definitely ways to make money.
Yeah.
So bartending was my lane. And I decided to start a little company. As a matter of fact, I'm writing a book. Which actually it's done, so you'll be hearing about it. Yeah, exclusive announcement. It's called Side Hustle Bartending.
Okay, you heard it first here on my show.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Nobody knows.
See?
So it's called Side Hustle Bartending: How to Turn Pours into Profit as an event bartender. That's what it's called. So I'm excited about that.
That's awesome.
I started Mobile Bartending Academy, where I'm going to teach people how to become event bartenders. So they can kind of get out of debt. And that really was my motivation, is to help people make money on the side. And you can make it a full-time business, but make some good money on the side. Pay for your passion, or pay, your debt in my situation. So anyways, that's pretty much what I've been doing.
Oh my goodness, I love
aside
it.
From podcasting.
You look, aside from podcasting, so he's a man of many talents and many businesses. I love it.
Well,
okay, so I might want to put in like a little mini application to get on. What's the name of your mobile bartending?
So it's MBAbartending.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We'll make sure we'll post it on so you guys.
Thank you.
And if you parties.
That's right.
Whatever you have, everybody wants to drink.
That's right. I'm just
saying.
Got you.
Right. So let's jump right back in. So how do you know when you're winning? Like, do you have a moment to say, you know what, I'm doing pretty good?
Right.
Like, what's your moment?
That's a great question. I think that embracing just being a part of the process, I don't think I do that enough. A lot of entrepreneurs don't do that. We don't, to press pause and say, hey, I'm actually doing something, because we're constantly on just autopilot, right? We're that hamster in the hamster wheel going in circles and circles, and it takes time to press pause and be like, all right, let me celebrate the small wins, which anybody who's watching and listening, you have to take some time to celebrate the small wins. When you release that ebook, when you publish your first episode on a podcast, when you do your first video, when you get that first sale, no matter how small or big that is, pause and celebrate it. Because I think not too many of us, or not enough. Celebrate the small wins, and they're important. So how do you know when you're winning? I think just the fact that you're getting up in the morning, that you're grateful and you're just doing what you love to do, I think that's winning right there.
Yes.
Yeah, it's winning.
Say that, Pastor Ozial.
Wait.
I'm just messing with him.
Yeah.
No, but I love it. Celebrate the small wins.
Yes.
I know we can go on and on, especially being creative, because you're always thinking of the next biggest thing. And I think that's what separates a business owner from an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur is always creating, building.
Right.
Now it is push it on, sell it, do whatever you want to do. Now we're on to the next thing. A business owner just kind of is okay with managing and growing or whatever. But I consider us to be definitely creative.
You're winning. I mean, we're winning right here.
We're winning.
We're winning. We're
live. Yeah.
Yes.
And so don't get caught up in like it just have to be just big, or it has to be a big thing to consider it.
Right. I remember as a musician, Shaundra, I'll share with you this and your viewers and listeners. I remember whenever, so I was in the music grind for a while, and we're doing tours, we're coming out with some CDs or whatnot, and we had some local success. And I remember a friend of mine was like, hey, so, you know, when do you feel you're gonna make it? I mean, are you struggling? You're struggling. I see you're not on MTV yet. I said, you know, do you ever get frustrated? And I turned to him and was like, you know what, I already made it. I'm already successful because I'm doing what I love. Just because I'm not on MTV, have this big record deal, doesn't mean that I'm losing.
Right.
So I think a lot of people get it twisted and feel like, you know, if you're not at this level, if you're not making 6 figures or 7 figures, you're not an entrepreneur or you're not winning as an entrepreneur.
Right.
But if you're making 60K doing what you love to do, hey, to me, that's winning. And I think a lot of people need to go ahead and start lowering it down, the bar down, and not have so much expectations to do all those 6 or 7 figures.
Exactly, or be too ambitious. Like, like kind of know where you thrive.
Exactly.
And so, let me ask you this. So at what point do you feel like people should quit, or at what point do you feel like sometimes people quit too soon?
I think a lot of people quit too soon. I think there are moments where you feel like when you lose passion, I think there's that moment when you need to pivot. But if you're still passionate about it, especially in our world, I think there's a couple things. Usually it's the marketing or branding. And that's usually once you kind of tweak that, but you know, you can see some success. But I mean, I think there's moments to pivot. I mean, a moment for me, which was really hard, was because through my 20s and early 30s, music is all I knew. So it took me a long time for me to be like, okay, now it's time to pivot, Ozial. Let's try something else. And that was hard for me because I identify as a musician and still do.
Yeah.
But I have evolved into being a performer behind the mic.
Yeah.
And empowering other people, right? And still using, because I was a vocalist, still using that stage, but from a different perspective now. Empowering entrepreneurs, empowering creatives. So I evolved, but it took me a minute. For me to embrace that pivot.
Yeah,
but I think you know. It's just
when it's time, and I like to call it shifting gears.
I love that.
Like sometimes you gotta hit reverse.
Love that.
Sometimes you gotta hit neutral. Sometimes it's time to drive, but you gotta you just have to know when when it's time. Because there have been times where I probably should have stopped.
Right.
And said this isn't working. To move on to something else. And that too can be a setback.
Blind devotion.
Talk about that. What's that? I hadn't heard that before.
Yeah, blind devotion. Blind devotion is whenever you exhausted. Like, have you ever been in a situation whenever a person or a relationship or an idea was exhausted, it was out of season, but you're still sticking with it? We've all gone through that.
Yeah.
So I think that also applies in entrepreneurship. And I think there comes a point where you need to make sure that you just take out those blinders and figure out, look, okay, I gotta pause, I gotta relax, and start, listening to my inner voice and make that shifting gears. You start shifting gears because, I get caught up with that all the time. Blind devotion, trying to people please everybody, and trying to exhaust my energy. I'm like, man, why? And I'm like, I need to just stop. Stop trying to devote. Exactly.
It's not going anywhere.
Exactly.
So let's talk about Pod Houston.
Yeah.
Your group that you started. I found it on Facebook and I joined. And
you went, right? Did you go to one of the events?
Yeah, I did. I did. I went to one of the events. I can't remember where it was. But you were the speaker, and he was talking about podcasting and branding. And when I say after I left, I was so pumped, Oziel. Yeah. I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like, this is it. And I, like you, I wanted to, be on the radio and things. And so podcasting, since it's just, still new, it's so much room to grow.
Yes.
And it's so creative and it's so fluid. For real. So let's talk about this, Oziel. So now we have celebrities.
Yes.
I'm feeling like they have to kind of get into if they want to stay relevant. What's your take on that? People in even radio stations, the transition, they have to switch over and kind of get in with the times.
Right. So I said this about 5 years ago. I said, you know what? I said, let's jump in the game because the pros are coming. And sure enough, NPR, Shaquille O'Neal started a podcast. I mean, everybody started a podcast. Yeah. But because they see the leverage in podcasting. See, podcasting is free and it has global distribution, meaning that once you hit that publish button, it goes all over the world. Yes. Whereas broadcasting is a little bit more rigid. You can go local, you can go maybe, national, but, podcast is global, And not only that, this is actually a fun fact I want to share with you and your your viewers, is that podcasting is only 500. Actually, wait, what was it? 550. 890 active users. Okay, so 1,000. So it hasn't even cracked 1 million yet.
Oh, wow.
Whereas YouTube and bloggers, they have about 250 million.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of people. So podcasting is early in the game. So for anybody who's interested in starting a podcast, now is the time to get started because it hasn't even cracked 1 million yet.
Right.
So a lot of celebrities are seeing the leverage and are now going towards podcasting as a platform to reach a bigger audience.
Right.
Yeah.
But everybody shouldn't start podcasting.
Right.
I mean,
right. Yeah. Know your thing. Know your strength.
You gotta know your thing. So what's the next big thing for you?
Well, Pod Houston, I'm going to continue growing. We're over 140, actually 450 members in the group.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
All our events, you've been to them, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're consistently packed. We have great speakers.
Amazing speakers.
Yeah, so it's just growing, and I'm really excited to grow that into ultimately a conference in 2020.
Okay, I was
so
waiting.
that's an exclusive. That's another exclusive.
See? Oh my God.
I'm giving you the exclusives here.
Season 2 is for real, you guys.
Yes.
So, I love it. That's what I was waiting on because Houston is, we're the 4th largest city, and we're changing. We're very cultural. We're very diverse, and we have a lot, that comes through Houston. I think that'll be awesome.
Yeah, we need that.
New
York, LA, Chicago has big conferences, but Houston wasn't, we weren't doing anything with podcasts, which is the reason why I started Pod Houston.
Really?
Yeah.
It's going to happen. I'm going to be on the planning committee. He don't even know.
Yeah. That's right. You are. You're going to be in the mix.
So, what do you do, when you're winning and you're still not happy? Because you can still get to a place and you're still not satisfied. So, how do you deal with that?
I think surrounding yourself around good people, a great team, I think is important. Getting away from the yes people and getting with the real people that are going to be real with you. I think having accountability, I think is important. Yeah. And then just, checking in with yourself, having that conversation with yourself and asking yourself, what do I want? What are some of the goals that I want for myself quarterly, yearly, from a monetary standpoint, also from just a passion, career standpoint. Yeah. So I think just checking in, having a conversation, having a good support system, and I think just expanding from there, I think is always a good way to do it. A good thing for sure.
How do you stay humble from saying, I'm here, like I'm doing it. So how do you differentiate, and still stay humble, but still, like you say, celebrate? Because sometimes people on the outside can pump you up and it can get in your head.
Right.
And, and then when you come down off the high, although you're still there,
I've been there.
You're like, something is still missing.
Right. Yeah, I think just knowing that you have to give your room, make room for mistakes as well. Nobody's perfect.
Yes.
And you have to embrace imperfection and go with it. And again, just having that conversation with yourself and having people around you that you can talk to is important. I try to keep a nice core of people I can talk to about certain things, whether it's depression or things that I'm going through. But there's going to be highs and lows, especially as an entrepreneur. There's money. We're going to have a lot of money, and then there's times when we may be broke.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's part of the process, and I think we appreciate that journey. Rather than sacrificing it for a day job or a cubicle job, which I've done. It's just embracing who you are. And that's part of the journey.
I love it. Ozial, thank you for joining us. I'm going to have to bring you back.
Yeah,
you guys, I know you have heard some really good stuff on, winning. Winning is good, but then there's also a balance to that in knowing, to stay humble, but also trust the process in it and celebrate your small wins, your small successes. So it brings me to one of my favorite parts of Snap Talk with Shaundra.
All right.
So we call it Snap Thoughts.
Okay.
So it's the first thing that comes to mind. So you have to pick a question from the box, and it's the first thing that comes to mind. So you're going to hand it to me?
Let's do it.
All righty.
All right.
Let's see. First one.
I like this. This is cool.
Aha. What advice would you give a friend about getting married?
Oh,
he laughed, y'all. He laughed. Uh-oh.
Let's see. About getting married. Let's see. I think just honesty. I think really just being really honest with yourself and honest with them as far as what you want. I think just I think once wait a minute, the question was to get married?
Yeah, they're getting married.
They're getting married.
Yeah, they're about to get married.
Yeah, about to get married. Yeah, definitely honesty.
Okay.
Honesty, because I think there's always going to be some challenges within the marriage. And I think that honesty is definitely the best way to go. And everybody should, operate with integrity and honesty.
I agree.
So I think that's important.
That's what you would tell
especially in a marriage. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, next
I don't have anything deep for that one, but
Right.
just be honest.
Just be honest.
Oh, here you go. There you go.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
You win $1 million.
Yes.
What's the first thing you buy? First thing.
You know what? The first thing I would do is buy my mom a house.
Oh.
That would be the first thing.
Yeah.
It definitely wouldn't be for myself.
That's
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah.
I can definitely see you doing that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love my mama. So that's the first thing that I would do.
love my mama.
Yes.
All right. Next one.
Uh-huh.
And I think this is the last one.
Okay.
Let's see. Let's pick another one.
Okay. That wasn't good. That wasn't good.
That wasn't good enough. That wasn't good enough for me.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
All right, Ozial.
Mm.
You can hop on a plane
Yes.
anywhere in the world tomorrow morning. Where would you go?
Ooh, tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Ooh, that's a tough one. That is a really tough one.
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
And why?
Well, I'm trying to think. Greece. Because I studied a lot of theology and Greek mythology, and I'm just intrigued by just the whole Greek culture.
Yeah.
And I think I would love to kind of study and learn about that. Yeah, Plato and Aristotle.
Yeah.
And I was really into philosophy.
Okay.
So I think I would go there just
Greece.
because I'm just intrigued by Greece. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. You
Absolutely.
guys, you have heard exclusives here
That's
first
right.
with Ozial, with Pod Houston and the podcast show host of, No Permission Needed. Thank you for joining us. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you tune in next week. Like, share, comment. Let me know what you thought. And we will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
Okay, good.
Boom.
Good.
Thank you for tuning in to SnappTalk with Shaundra, the podcast. Want to hear more? Let's go! Hit the subscribe button. Please rate and review.